On April 8th, 2024, get ready for an extraordinary celestial event. We're about to witness a solar eclipse, but it's not just any solar eclipse. This will be an extremely rare total solar eclipse with intriguing connections to the predictions of the 2024 elections, impacting the United States and Israel. Some even speculate that this could signal the end times. In today's video, I'll explain the true meaning behind this solar eclipse and reveal its implications. And believe me, you won't want to miss the shocking conclusion of this video. In various parts of the Bible, we find connections between end-time events and celestial phenomena. Many verses mention the sun, the moon, the stars, and even eclipses in relation to prophecies about the last days. For example, in Luke 21:25, Jesus speaks of signs in the sun, moon, and stars when discussing the timing of the last days. As a result, when people observe unusual or rare astronomical events, they often begin to ponder if the last days are approaching. To truly understand the meaning behind a sign like a solar or lunar eclipse, it is crucial to reflect on history, explore biblical references to similar events, observe ongoing global events, and carefully analyze circumstances. By combining these elements, we can discern whether there is a genuine warning or if it is part of a larger unfolding biblical prophecy. As wisely stated in Ecclesiastes 1:9, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. This simply means that history tends to repeat itself. And here's where things get shocking. God's character remains constant, unchanged from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This means that God continues to communicate as he always has and address sin and nations as he has throughout history and the Bible. Recurring patterns emerge, especially regarding idolatry and a nation's sin, which God consistently confronts. Every significant prophet in the Bible who addressed Israel's idolatry and sin was accompanied by specific signs and warnings, indicating what would happen next. Reflecting on Revelation, chapter 6, we encounter the symbolism of the four horsemen, representing God's judgment on nations. First comes a figure representing conquest or leadership, leading to division and global turmoil. Next comes war, causing conflicts and disturbing the peace. Subsequently, famine follows, bringing economic hardships and agricultural struggles. Finally, death arrives, spreading plague and disease. While these events unfold on a global scale, they also echo recurring patterns seen throughout history in the Bible. These signs often arise in response to the sins and idolatries of a nation, illustrating the cyclical nature of divine intervention over time. For example, God appointed Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian conqueror, to bring judgment not only on Israel but also on neighboring nations like Egypt, Assyria, Moab, and even the Philistines and Phoenicians in the Gaza Strip region before the sieges. Jeremiah, the prophet, mentioned a severe plague and famine that devastated the land for years, weakening the nations in readiness for Babylon's advance. In the Bible, Jeremiah 38:2 conveys the message of the Lord, stating that those who remain in this city will die by the sword, famine, and disease. But those who surrender to the king of Babylon will live, they will escape with their lives as a reward. Looking at recent events, starting from 2020, we witnessed all four signs: plague, famine, economic hardships, widespread civil unrest, including protests and demonstrations, and finally the specter of war with Russia. These events not only impacted America but the whole world. These events serve as potent reminders of prevalent sin and idolatry in nations and signal God's judgment on the earth. While this does not necessarily mean it is the last days, the signs are undeniable and suggest that significant changes are approaching. If these are indeed signs of judgment, there must be reasons behind them. There must have been warnings or indications preceding these judgments, as God never acts without first revealing his intentions to his prophets. Now, let's delve into the significance of the sun and the moon in prophetic signs. Did you know that, in biblical prophecy, the moon consistently represents Israel, while the sun symbolizes the Gentile nations? Well, you'll want to pay close attention because things are about to get much more interesting. The book of Genesis reveals that the sun, the moon, and the stars were not created until the fourth day. Before that, light already existed on the earth, along with vegetation like trees and flowers, which were created on the third day. It's worth noting that trees and plants depend on sunlight and rain, but the sun itself was not brought into existence until the fourth day. How could this be? This shows us the critical role of the sun and the moon in sustaining Earth's climate and ecosystems. Without them, there would be no ocean currents, hence no weather and consequently, no rain. In that ancient time, rain was not a common occurrence until the days of Noah's flood. Genesis 2:5-6 sheds light on this, explaining that there were still no shrubs or plants because God had not yet sent rain, instead relying on streams that rose from the earth to water the ground. So why did God create plants on the third day before the sun, the moon, or rain even existed? It turns out the sun and the moon had a completely different role together. Genesis 1:14-19 describes how God created these celestial bodies to separate the day from the night and serve as markers for sacred times, festivals, and seasons. They were meant to govern the passing of days, years, and the timing of important events. These celestial signs have particular significance in biblical prophecies, especially concerning the last days. Joel 2:30-31 speaks of wonders in the heavens and on earth, including the darkening of the sun and the turning of the moon into blood, signaling the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. This imagery symbolizes imminent turbulence, with blood representing war and judgment, while smoke and fire signify volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. These celestial events are prophetic indicators, as Jesus himself predicted earthquakes, volcanoes, wars, and other disturbances as precursors to significant events. Did you know that the 2014 to 2015 blood moon tetrad had a connection to Israel? Well, here's where things take a turn. During that period, there were 4 total lunar eclipses, also known as blood moons, occurring in rapid succession, precisely coinciding with 4 significant Jewish festivals, forming what they called the blood moon tetrad. However, many struggle to comprehend the significance of this particular sign, and its meaning remains unknown to this day. The number 4 often symbolizes the universal authority of God's word. Symbolically, the moon represents God's protection and oversight over the nation and people of Israel. The reddish hue of the eclipse was seen as a harbinger of imminent bloodshed, a sign of impending judgment, given that the eclipses spanned a period of 2 years. The number 2, biblically associated with division, was interpreted as a warning regarding the potential division of the land of Israel, referring to Job 3:1-2. The Bible speaks of a crucial event that triggers the 7-year tribulation period and the judgment of nations. It describes a time when God will gather all nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat for judgment, specifically for their unfair treatment of Israel, including the dispersal of the people and the division of the land. We are witnessing nations dividing the land of Israel, a situation hinted at in the book of Joel. The Bible even points out specific nations responsible for this division, namely Tyre and Sidon. What you are about to see next is quite shocking. Sidon and Tyre were regions inhabited by the Phoenicians, known for their expertise in commerce. The prophet Ezekiel, in Ezekiel 28, mentions the king of Tyre as a precursor to the Antichrist. After the Greek and Roman conquests of Tyre and Sidon, the Phoenicians migrated to Greece and Rome. Interestingly, the entire European continent was named by the Phoenicians after the daughter of the famous Phoenician king of Tyre, Europa. Today, the European Union, the United Nations, and even America are linked to the ancient regions of Tyre and Sidon, once inhabited by the Phoenicians. These modern nations are expected to play a role in shaping and promoting the 7-year peace treaty, as prophesied in the Bible, which will be confirmed by the Antichrist. It is crucial to understand the significance of this and what it means for the future. Now, in 2017, 2 significant and unusual events occurred in America. First, on August 21, 2017, there was a notable event known as the Great American Solar Eclipse. It was visible across the nation, from the west coast to the east coast of the United States. However, It's essential to know that an eclipse alone doesn't have much significance unless accompanied by other events that align with biblical and Israelite contexts. The following month, on September 23, 2017, another exceptionally rare event occurred involving the alignment of stars and constellations, known as the sign of Revelation 12. On this date, the constellations of Virgo and Leo, along with Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon, aligned in a unique way, resembling the depiction of Revelation 12 in the Bible. Did you know that this alignment occurred only twice in history? Well, here's where things get even more shocking. Keep your eyes on these constellations as they will be significant again in relation to the 2024 eclipse. Revelation 12 warns us about the conflict between the Antichrist, known as the Beast, and the saints, as well as the rebirth of Israel and Jerusalem as a nation. Both of these signs together served as a severe warning to the United States regarding Israel, specifically concerning the division of the land. 3.5 years later, symbolizing how this division may occur with the Antichrist, from August 2017 to January 28, 2020, President Donald Trump proposed his century deal called Peace to Prosperity. He advocated for a two-state solution, granting 70% of the land of Israel, including the eastern half of Jerusalem, to the Palestinians, the ancient Philistines, historical enemies of Israel, for the creation of a Palestinian state. 3 months later, the pandemic emerged, causing widespread devastation worldwide. This was followed by significant economic struggles, civil unrest, conflicts with Russia, and the loss of leadership for both Netanyahu and Trump in 2020. Surprisingly, instead of witnessing the signs of the four horsemen, as expected, we saw their signs occurring in reverse order. Additionally, as a consequence of these events, we observed the emergence of alliances like Gog and Magog, primarily through the oil nations of OPEC aligning with BRICS alliances, including China. These alliances are effectively challenging the dominance of the American dollar in trade, leading to significant inflation and the imminent collapse of the banking system in the US. Shockingly, all these events were prophesied in the Bible about Israel and the end times. Moving forward to April 8, 2024, 7 years after the initial eclipse in August 2017, another eclipse is predicted to occur. This time, it will not only be visible across the United States, but its path of totality will form a significant X-shape across the country. However, unlike the 2017 eclipse, unlike the sign of Revelation 12, this eclipse will only cover the eastern half of the nation and will occur 7 months before the 2024 presidential elections. Interestingly, just like the sign of Revelation 12, the constellation of Leo, symbolizing Judah and Jerusalem, will align with the solar eclipse on April 8, 2024. This constellation is associated with the Lion of Judah, representing Jesus. So what does all this mean in biblical prophecy? The number 7 often symbolizes completion, indicating the end of a cycle. In this context, it refers to the conclusion of Israel's 70 weeks of judgment, represented by cycles of 7 years. This eclipse is not necessarily a warning about future events, but rather a reflection of past occurrences connected to the future. The X shape formed by the eclipse resembles the Hebrew letter Tav, which symbolizes a mark or seal. This letter is significant as it is used only twice in the Bible, including in Ezekiel chapter 9, where it represents a seal of protection placed on those who mourned for the sins of the first Jewish temple before its destruction by Babylon. And similarly, it echoes the marking of the doorposts during the first Passover in Exodus, foreshadowing the mark of the beast and the seal of protection over the 144,000 witnesses during the 7-year tribulation period. Therefore, the Tav mark in the United States signifies both protection and judgment, especially concerning the division of the land of Israel. If you enjoyed this video, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share it as much as possible with your friends and family. Your participation is essential for us to reach more people and continue producing content that you appreciate. Subscribe now to not miss any of our upcoming videos, leave your like to show us your support, and share to help expand our community. Thank you for watching and for your continued support.